In this lesson, we're going to look at one-step equations, and we're going to focus on the ones that are solved using multiplication or division. I'll start off by showing you balance scales and why they're important, and then look at inverse of numbers or multiplicative inverses. Inverse of numbers is very American. Multiplicative inverses is more British or European. And then we're going to examine steps in solving one-step equations and use those steps to solve some examples together. So balance scale just means that you have the same quantity on both sides of the scale. With the balance scale, when you're looking at multiplication, you have multiple of the same type of quantity on one side so that you can balance it out with the other side. So in this case, what we're saying here is I have 3 items that weigh 5 pounds or that have a value of 5, or I have 5 items that have a value of 3, and then on this side I have 1 item that has a value of 15. So that's the way you balance them out. So the inverse of a number, or some will call it the multiplicative inverse, is a number in which the denominator and numerator are switched, and so that the product of the number and its inverse is 1. So let's look at some examples here. When you're trying to get the inverse of a number, the easiest way to go about it is to first write it as a fraction. If you have a whole number, all you need to do is make the denominator 1. So in this case, I have -2 over 1, and now the inverse of that is going to be 1 over 2, and then we keep the sign, which is negative. You can see that if you multiply this out, you will end up with +1. Now we have 3 over 7. The inverse of this is going to be flip the numerator and denominator, so they switch positions, and we have 7 over 3. -5 over 9. What we're going to have for the inverse or the multiplicative inverse right here is going to be, we keep the sign, and then we have 9 over 5. Now, how do we go about solving this type of equations? Well, the first thing you want to do is identify the variable that you want to isolate and figure out what side of the equation you want to isolate it. And then when you have a situation where there's a multiplication or a division, you want to find the inverse or the multiplicative inverse of the number to the left of the variable, which is also called the variable's coefficient. And then you want to multiply both sides of the equation by this identified inverse, and just make sure that you have your solution such that there's a variable on one side and there is a number on the other side, or we can call that also a constant. So let's look at this example here. 2x is equal to 10. So let me show you some ways of thinking through this. So 2x is equal to 10. So let's look at I always like to look at this from the sense of the opposite operation to the variable. So we have 2 multiplied by x equal to 10. So I'm multiplying x by 2. So what is the opposite of doing that? Is dividing by 2. And then we do that on both sides. So if I divide, so 2 divided by 2 is going to give me 1. So x is equal to 5. Now let's look at another way of saying this. The multiplicative inverse, or the inverse of 2, is 1/2. So here we have 2x equal to 10. So what I'm saying here is the inverse is going to be 1/2, and then we multiply that by both sides. So the inverse of 2, that is 1/2. So you can see here we can cross this out, and then we can cross this out and get 5. So x is equal to 5. So what I'm trying to show you is that it doesn't matter what approach you take, you'll always end up in the same position. I'm doing this because I know that depending on the type of school system you go to, one or the other will be used. So I'll try to do that for all the problems in this video. So I have 1 over 3x. 1 over 3x equal to 5, or 1/3 x equal to 5. So here, what I'm doing here is I'm dividing x, I'm actually multiplying x by 1/3. That's what I'm doing here. I'm multiplying x by 1/3. So the opposite of that is to divide x by 1/3. I divide the whole thing by 1/3, and I also do that on this side. So this is going to cross out because they're the same quantity. So x is equal to 5 divided by 1/3, and the rule is that you keep the left side the same, you change it to multiplication, and then you flip the right side. So x is equal to 15. So let's look at the second approach. 1/3 x equal to 5. So one way to look at this is we'll want to find out the multiplicative inverse of the coefficient of x. So the multiplicative inverse here is 3. And so we multiply both sides by 3. So this is going to cross out. We have x equal to 15. So that's another way to look at it. Next question, negative 4x is equal to 12. Negative 4x equal to 12. One way of looking at this is that we're multiplying x by negative 4. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by negative 4 and then divide by negative 4. So I have x equal to negative 3. Another way to look at this is negative 4x equal to 12. So what I'm doing here is to look for the multiplicative inverse of negative 4, or the inverse of negative 4, and that is negative 1 over 4. And so I multiply both sides by negative 1 over 4. So you can see here that this is going to cross this out, and because you have negative negative here, we have a positive x equal to 12 divided by negative 4. So x equal to negative 3. See, you get the same result regardless of the approach you take. Now let's look at this one. Negative 4 over 5x equal to negative 4. So first approach we're going to look at is understanding that this means that we're multiplying x by negative 4 over 5. So the opposite behavior is to divide by negative 4 over 5. And then we do that on both sides. So same quantity, so we can cross this out. So x equal to negative 4 divided by negative 4 over 5. And here we have negative 4. We keep the left side the same. We change the division to multiplication, and then we'll keep our negative and flip the fraction. So this is going to give us 20 over 4, which is equal to 5. So x is equal to 5. That's one way to look at it, or you can just simply cross out because they have the same quantity, numerator, denominator. So the other approach we're going to look at is negative 4 over 5x equal to negative 4. The multiplicative inverse, don't forget that the reason why we're using a multiplicative inverse is because this signifies a multiplication. The multiplicative inverse of negative 4 over 5 is negative 5 over 4. And then, so we multiply both sides by negative 5 over 4. So this is going to cross out. So we're left with x right here equal to, and then this is going to cross out. We're left with negative 1 here. So negative 1 multiplied by negative 5. So x is equal to 5.